You're listening to Permission to Shine, the podcast. Stories of overcoming obstacles and finding self-empowerment with Sherisse Bisram, Inner Power Activation Leader. The Oxford Dictionary describes permission as the action of officially allowing someone to do a particular thing, consent, authorization. What if you were that someone and you gave yourself the permission to be everything you wanted to be and more? No more playing small and accepting less than. You are worthy of the life of your dreams, regardless of what it is that you've been through. And honestly, it's exactly what you've been through that has shaped you into the version of yourself that you are now. Like a diamond, you've endured so much, but instead of breaking, you have become stronger and brighter. And if that's not a reason to shine, then I don't know what is. And if nature can do it, then why the hell can't you? You are brave, you are strong, you are powerful, and you are enough. Hear my call and give yourself the permission to shine, because you don't realise how many people are inspired by your light. Hey everyone, I am excited to introduce today another international guest. And it was so funny when Angie approached me, I saw her name and I was like, this woman, we must share something in common. And actually, when we spoke the first time, we found so many different connection points. So for me, that's a good sign that someone is a great guest. So I'd love to introduce you all, Angie Leon.
Hello, thank you for having me on the podcast. I'm really excited to have a meaningful, soulful conversation with you.
Yes, absolutely that. So for the audience that don't know you, Angie, please could you introduce yourself and what you do?
Sure. So as you said, I'm Angie Leon. I am a mother, and I am now recently, within the past 2 weeks, a grandmother.
Congrats.
Yes, I'm really excited. I have my first baby granddaughter, and my background was healthcare. I worked in the operating room for many years, and then I taught surgical technology which is in the US is kind of like it's a specialty for the person. It's not nursing, it's a specialty for the person who assists the surgeon. So then I taught that for many years in higher ed. And then 7 years ago, I went out on my own and started my own business with my husband, and we have a consultancy, and we're in the space of in developing human beings in the workplace, as individuals and as a organization from an organizational perspective. So I get to facilitate and work with awesome people and leaders from. Now we have international clients, and I really like to work with the individuals and teams. My husband likes to take the approach from the organization and the culture in that organization. And so I get to work with amazing people that are focused on learning and development and growing their people, and they are people first cultures. So that's the space I'm in, and I love it. And it was scary leaving a safe job to go do that, but it's been the best decision I've made. And I really started I have a podcast too, and I started it actually to just give people some tips and wisdom from the leaders that I get to work with. And so this is my offering, and I'm just trying to find like-minded souls who are trying to make the world a better place, and they know that we can do things better and differently.
Yeah, definitely. I so resonate with that myself. And actually, funny enough, that's how this podcast started for me. I was just told all of the time, you need a podcast, you need to create a podcast. I was like, okay, I'm going to do it after years of being told it. And yeah, it's just one of those things, isn't it? It's like almost like a brain dump of really valuable nuggets of information. And even sometimes I listen back myself and I'm like, that was a really good bit of advice. I'm going to take that for myself. But even more so, the thing that you said there at the end, it's for me, it's like if I could help one person, then I feel like I've fulfilled my soul purpose. And actually, I'm finding that it's more than one person, and that's incredible. So I love that for you as well. But I'd love to know kind of how you first kind of developed this passion for helping people and kind of diving into your journey a bit more as a woman, because I know that you obviously have a story still. So I'd love for you to kind of just have the floor to share that space with us.
Thank you. Yeah, so and this is one thing that I've been working on, is sharing my story. I'm really good at helping other people and coaching and developing them, but sharing my story has been a little bit more of a struggle. And I think your listeners could probably resonate with that. Like, we love to help others, but sometimes we forget to share our piece and what our journey has been. So my journey started out in North Idaho, and here in the States, and I actually had a lot of adverse childhood experiences. They're called ACEs. So I had a lot of abuse and lots of things. There's a quiz out there called ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences, and I had 8 out of 10 of those. And so I grew up in an environment where people were just, substance abusing, not very high of education, like really just surviving. They weren't in the thrive, they were on the kind of like the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy, just in that space of survival. And so I grew up poor, and I really wanted a different life for myself. And so at age 18, 19, I just drove away, and I drove to Southern Idaho after I'd finished my first year at community college. And I was a first generation college graduate, or go to college. I wasn't a graduate yet. But I ended up going to Boise, the capital of Idaho, to go to school at Boise State University. And I started to meet, and I got a job at a hospital, and they started to kind of be my new family. They really surrounded me and supported me with tools and frameworks, and just also helped me to believe in myself when I didn't believe in myself. And so I made a lot of dumb decisions along the way. I was young and out there on my own, and I did a lot of cringy things as I look back. But literally, the journey, pretty soon I started a family really early. In Idaho, people tend to get married really early. And so I did what the societal script said, is like, get married and have kids, and, find your Prince Charming, and, it's life is a Disney movie, and you're just going to be the princess, and all you need is somebody to come save you. So I did that whole thing, and I had amazing kids, 2 amazing kids. And after about 18 years of marriage, I ended up getting divorced. And I had a 5-year period of, I call them life quakes, which were, I lost my mom unexpectedly. She was only 52 when she died. Then I lost my dad. This is all within a 5-year period. I lost my dad. He was 62 unexpectedly to a heart attack. Then my aunt, who had been my savior, my hero, that helped me a lot when I was growing up, she got Alzheimer's. And so as she was going through Alzheimer's and I was her power of attorney, I also got divorced. And then my aunt, my hero, died, and then my dog died. So like literally within 5 years, I really hit rock bottom. The biggest life quake, the midlife crisis, whatever you want to call it. I literally was broken into a million pieces. And from there, I've been picking myself up and putting myself back together again in a way that is who I want to be, not what societies or other people think that my script should be. So it's kind of the long or the short version. But so since I've been through so many of these transitions, and I've studied I've studied a lot of emotional intelligence, human behavior, and now I'm actually studying transitional intelligence, or TQ. And I have a community that I'm learning all of this through, which is called Modern Elder Academy, which is the world's first midlife wisdom school. And I have been learning a lot about myself and my journey. And I didn't have a language before I started to study the work. And now I have a language, a mindset, a tool set, a skill set that has helped me to navigate not only my own journey, but to help other people navigate theirs. And so that's what I get to do. And that not everybody's ready for it. Not everybody's a learning or growth mindset type person, but I'm finding my people.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, a lot of obviously your story I can relate to as well. Like the ACEs is something that I didn't know about until I was sort of embarking on my own healing journey. And that's how I found out about it. And I also got 8 out of 10. And that was when I was like, ah, that makes a lot of sense. I was like, now that makes sense in every part of my life. And I guess for you as well, when you got to that point where you're going through your divorce and things were starting to shift around you, I bet there was part of you then that thought, what have I repeated that I've seen?
Mhm.
What am I about to do differently now? Which you've kind of said in your own words, which I think that we all get to that point at some point in our lives. Now, I think a lot of people, like you said, are one, not willing to shift out of that, or two, they're scared, to even dive in. And then you get the third example, which is probably like both of us, where you haven't had a choice and you've just had to do it. So I feel like at some point in your life, you'll be faced with this crossroad, right? And it's like, do I keep repeating the same thing again and get the same results, or am I willing to take a different route? And or do I just pick up some form of equipment and just start digging my way and forging a new pathway? And I think yeah, it sounds like as you've been forging your new pathway, along the way, you've found these tools and practices, and like you said, people that have, joined you on that journey, which is such a beautiful thing. And I really relate to that in my own way as well. That saying your vibe attracts your tribe. It definitely is that, isn't it? And
Yes.
I really do feel like as well, I mean, you haven't mentioned this, but I would love to throw this in the ring, is the feminine energy aspect of this. Like, I feel like the healing process itself is in itself feminine, but I feel like we can make it masculine by trying to get to the end of it and figure it out and do all these modalities, but actually, like, embracing, I think, is like the real feminine way to navigate this. And I'd love to know your perspective on that as well.
I love that. I see it, that feminine compassion and love towards yourself, to actually see yourself through a lens of compassion and love, and not be your biggest critic. And that's easy, that's easier said than done, because if you've heard a lot of people talking down to you, or saying you couldn't do this, or like my high school counselor told me I wasn't smart enough to go to college, so when there's people, so I taught college. I was like, okay, I can't do. Not only can I do it, because you can't tell me that I can't, but I really do think that everybody responds to that different. And some people might just take that as gospel, and then they never try because they've been told they can't. And so I had to really evaluate where those scripts were coming from, where I'd heard them, if they were serving me anymore, and really start to recognize, I get to create my own life, and nobody can tell me what that is. And I'm also responsible for the consequences of my choices, right? And so I would have to say, learning to look at myself through a lens of compassion and love it's really and get out of that victim mindset has been the real game changer for me. Because if I can look at my little girl self, and I do have pictures, like when I give a presentation, or sometimes I have a little picture of myself as a little girl there to remind me, and to bring her along, and to just show her, like, look how far you've come, and
Mm,
look at the life that you're creating. And you know the sky's the limit. It's, yeah, endless possibilities. And even though people may have told you can't do things, or you've believed that you can't, those were the things that were actually holding me back. And I had to recognize that just because you think something, just because you believe something, doesn't mean it's true.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with everything you've just said then. And, in my own words, I feel like I've expressed exactly the same thing. It's so important. And I think, the inner child healing is such a fundamental thing that we just aren't taught. And this is why, at the minute I'm back into the schools delivering my program that's focused around this, to give the girls these tools, right, that we're talking about, so they can navigate their lives and just kind of reroute from now. Like, they're between the ages of 11 to 15. And I said to them, I started it yesterday, and I said to them, I'm giving you everything I needed at your age, so you don't have to search your whole life for it, and I feel like they have no idea about how valuable this is right now. But,
Yeah.
the thing you said about having that picture of you to remind you of how far you've come, I almost had a moment of that myself today, where I was thinking about, what's next for me, what I'm creating, and then we get caught up in, like, how far we're going, and I had to stop for a minute and sit with it and be like, wow, like, you've already achieved more than what was expected of you. Like, you can just trust that it will fall into place, because you don't need to prove anything to anyone, because you're already there. And I think that we always need that reminder, especially when we come from adverse situations. I think that, that's also where the masculine comes in, isn't it? It's like, I can do this. I'll show you. And to a certain
Proving,
extent, you
proving.
need that, yeah, to get
Yeah.
you out of the survival to survive. But
Yeah.
then when you get to a place where you're safe, it's almost like being like, no, this is where it's okay. This is where we can figure it out and just soften into it, which is just yeah, a really, really beautiful thing for sure. But I guess for me, really, I mean, obviously the podcast is called Permission to Shine. So I'd love to know really in your story where you feel like that main point was for you in your journey.
Yeah, I want to say it really, the permission to shine thing has really come on probably in the last 3 or 4 years. I really have made myself small for other people's comfort and worn a lampshade just to make sure that I'm not too bright, because I do know that I'm highly passionate. I am opinionated, all the things, like there's a lot of things that, but when I'm passionate about something, I can bring people, I can influence for good, for bad as well, but I can also influence for good. And I know that I have this influence gift. I know I have an intuitive gift, where I can feel people's emotions. And it really came um, from being in those kinds of situations where I need to be able to read the emotions in the room to keep myself safe. And
Mm,
so I know that I have these gifts, and I think I've told you at one point I went through Peter Crohn's mastermind coaching. Did I tell you that? He's from the UK. He lives in the US in LA, but he's a coach. He's called the Mind Architect. At any rate, I really went through, when I was going through those coaching modules and the live coaching, I really realized how much I wear a lampshade to make other people comfortable.
mm,
And it's like, I don't want to shine too bright because people might, it's all the people pleasing things that we do. And I recognize that I am a recovering people pleaser. And I am really in this space of, I'm going to be me, and authenticity is one of my values. And so you really won't see me acting differently here than you will, if you catch me at work or in a workshop. I'm going to be my authentic self. So that's taken a long time too, because I used to be like a chameleon and try to fit every little environment that I would get in, and just try to look around to see how I should act in this environment. But that was because I was insecure and self-conscious and needed to prove myself and feel worthy to fit in. And the more I've stepped away from that and have just grown to be like, no, this is me. And I am working to improve versus prove. I'm always working to improve myself versus prove myself. And so that is where I feel like I've come into my power, being more authentic and being okay with people not liking me. It's okay. I'm
mm,
not for everybody, but I am for someone, and someone needs to hear my story, my journey, because everybody can attract people some people will be like, and if my husband and I do a keynote, it's so funny. Some people will beeline straight to him, or some people will beeline straight to me, because we are so different, and some people will really be attracted to his vibe and what he's talking about, or some people will be with me, and it's perfectly okay. I'm happy to even help people find the right person, or a right coach, or those kinds of things, because the match needs to be really good when you're working with the person, and you need to really feel like a bond and a trust and a synergy, and that, like, I feel safe with this person and they get me.
mm. No, definitely that. And I think it's really lovely hearing about, people's stories and how there's so many interconnecting parts and they're all in different places, which is really nice. Like I think for you, that lampshade analogy, I love the idea of that. As in, I don't love that you went through that, but I mean, as in like that idea that you're, shading yourself. And I think I was literally talking about this the other day about how I've always stood out for the wrong reason. I've always been like a sore thumb in an environment, because obviously I grew up in an area that wasn't diverse. I've always been loud in terms of personality and things like that. And I remember a similar sort of situation for you at school, being told that I wasn't very intelligent and being compared to my sister that was. And yeah, I just yeah, again developed that proving thing, but even down to I couldn't make myself be unseen. So I had to make a decision then to be like, okay, people are going to notice you anyway. So why not make a meal out of this, you know? And the other day I gave a talk, I'd say a couple of weeks ago, and I wore like a bright orange fluffy outfit. And I was like,
I
people were like,
saw it. You
yeah,
look good, girl. I saw it on your
thank you.
social.
But I'm like, you know what? If people are going to notice me, why not give them a show, you know? And that's not even me being in my ego. That's like full me always, you know? And like you said, my personality is always the same. You're always going to get this version of me. So it doesn't matter if I'm in no makeup and gym gear, or if I'm in a full feathered outfit, I will still be this version of me. And I think that is the epitome of self-empowerment, right? It's when you can just
Mhm.
hold that ground and be like, this is who I am. I could be talking to the king, I could be talking to someone that picks up leaves. It doesn't matter, because I'll always be this me. And I think that that's
Yeah.
so, yeah, really, really powerful. And also, you haven't mentioned, but you are writing at the moment as well, aren't you?
Yes, I don't have a title for my book yet, but I am sharing some of the wisdom, some of my stories from my life and the wisdom that I've learned along the way, hopefully to be a little bit give action items and perspectives for people. And it's scary, just kind of like starting a podcast or doing anything that you've never done before, public speaking, it's one of those things that's like, but I'm doing it anyway, and it will be for somebody. I don't know who, but somebody will need to hear it. And actually going through this process is really reflective and has been good for my soul too, because you don't realize how much you have come through until I actually mapped out my life. I got this big long piece of butcher paper and I put it all across the counter and I started to timeline and I picture life as like a river.
Mm,
And sometimes you hit class 5 rapids, sometimes you're like just smooth and sailing. And actually we did have, my husband and I actually did have our boat overturned this last year,
oh
and it
gosh.
was really scary. We were with some friends floating down the river, and so I'm thinking about that and how there's been some overturned boats in the
Mm,
journey, and some really rough patches, but also there's been some really beautiful scenery along the way, and a lot of beautiful beaches to just get out and hang out with the family and all of those things. And I've really in just been looking at it from the journey that I've been on. And when I look at it through that perspective and I see my life as a river, and the river is really pulling me to where I'm going to go. I can try to swim upstream as much as I want,
mm,
but struggling it's exhausting. And I was trying to swim upstream a lot and fight and fight and fight. And I've really learned in the past couple of years the power of surrender. And I don't know if
mm.
you've read Michael Sanger's work, but The Surrender Experiment and Untethered Soul, those two books I think are game changers to just
Yeah,
recognize, like, surrendering doesn't necessarily mean like just giving up. It means surrendering to life as it is versus how
absolutely.
you expect it to be. And that's become,
Mm,
ever since I've been working on that, life is giving me lots more opportunities to practice. And I realize when I have expectations, and I realize when they're not met and I'm disappointed, and then I suffer.
yeah.
And so I'm trying to eliminate my own suffering by accepting life as it is versus how I want it to be.
Absolutely, that I completely resonate with that 100%. And funny enough, when I began my healing journey, that was the first pillar of things that I thought about. One was vulnerability, and the next was, how have I tried to control everything in my life? And I just made it so much heavier than it needed to be. But again, we don't know any different, right? We're just in that survival mode. So the minute you can see that you don't have to swim as hard anymore, to use your water analogy, it's that's just a really beautiful thing. And I mean, it's not saying that you don't have to, swim to some degree, but there's an element of push and pull, isn't it, that needs to happen. And I think yeah, it's such an important thing. And Untethered Soul was such a great book. Like for me, I've reread that a few times because it's
Yeah.
just written so wonderfully, and not too hard to read. I think a lot of philosophy based books and self-help books can be quite wordy and scientific, and I feel like when I was starting to dive into this work, I'd never read vocabulary in such a way, you know, in terms of like I'm trying to think of some of the books I've got, like Eckhart Tolle. Some of his books were quite difficult to read at the beginning, and then I felt like as I started to get deeper into the work, understand what the words meant, I was like, oh, okay. But I always feel like the right books will find you at the right time, and I think
Yes.
again, to put down to surrender, right? I think the minute that you can say to the universe or God, whoever you believe in, that okay, show me what's next, instead of trying to figure it out yourself, that is like the biggest blessing I think you can give yourself.
Awesome. And I think that too. And I also think if somebody gives you a book or sends you a podcast, that is a gift. It is not
Mm,
something to be ignored. There's a reason that they've given it to you. There's something that they see that you need to hear. And I know, I mean, I'm notorious for sending books and podcasts, my friends and my kids, that, I mean, I'm to the point where I'm annoying, but I don't care. One day when I'm gone, or when they finally read that book, or when they finally get that message or that nugget that I know that they need to hear, they're going to know who sent that to them, and they will, when they're ready, it will change their life.
mm. No, I agree. I'm the same actually. I do. I mean, I'd say I don't send the books, but I recommend them. And now I've noticed that people ask me for them, so I'll just share what I'm reading or listening to, and then people will say, "Oh, what is that?" And then I kind of give recommendations that way, which is another nice thing to do. But I feel like I'm of that age group where not everyone wants to read, you know, like it's that push and pull. So I did at the beginning of my healing journey, I was like, you need to read this, everyone needs to read this. And then after a while, I was like, right, I'm not going to share this with you anymore. I'm just going to tell you how this has changed my life. And if you want to read it too, there you go. But I
Yeah.
think with your own book, you definitely need to send that out and be like, look, this is what's happened. But it's really nice to hear your process. And I love the idea of the timeline as well, because I think I'm in the process of, like, I started to write my book last year and I haven't really touched it again this year, but I feel like it's like a winter time thing for me. So I feel like this winter I'm going to dive in again from a different perspective. So it's really nice to have that reminder from you then about the book. So I was like, yeah, this has been something I've been thinking about recently myself. So it's just, yeah, that little point in the right direction again, that little nod there from the universe. But I remember when we had our chat a couple of weeks ago, you were talking about I think we are talking about like struggle to success, or from like surviving to abundance mindset. And I remember that you wanted to kind of discuss that a little bit more. So yeah, is there any points that you wanted to kind of bring up around that, maybe your experience?
Yeah. Well, you were talking about lenses just a minute ago, and that's what I think about when I think about, and I was talking about how I shifted my lens from self-loathing and, to seeing myself through a lens of compassion. So putting on a set of glasses that would actually help me to see myself in a different way, right? In a different light. Or, I really enjoyed photography. I love it. And, just taking a different perspective. And so that's what I'm thinking about as I think about scarcity versus abundance. When you come from scarcity and lack, then it's hard to know that that's the water you swim in. That's the culture that you're raised in. If you're poor and you're raised in scarcity and lack, then that's a lens that you see the world through, even though you don't know that that's how you see the world. It's just like a goldfish doesn't know they're in the water until they get out of the water. Then they recognize that they're outside the water. But if we define culture as the water we swim in, then if you are raised poor or with parents that have a scarcity mindset, you probably have a scarcity mindset. And that means there always has to be a winner or a loser. It means there's not enough love to go around for all of the kids. They love my sibling more. Or if she's successful, then I can't be successful. Or they have this, and then there's the wanting, and that is just a mindset. And I'll catch myself when I'll slip back into it, or if I start comparing or whatnot. And then I just recognize, oh, I just slipped in. I noticed that I slipped into that. And now I'm like, okay, I've evolved from there. I need to get back to where I know I can be. So changing the lens and just recognizing that that lens is not, so it's not serving me. And I really do believe there's enough work out there for all of us, and there's enough love out there for all of us. There's enough money out there for all of us. Like, it's all there. It's how do I tap in? How do I tap into the source? We are living in overabundance. There's enough food for everybody. There's enough money for everybody. It's more about how do I find it and how do I tap into it, instead of the learned helplessness that we get into about, well, this is just how it is, and this is me, this is the cards I was dealt, right?
I so resonate with it. And it's funny because I'm still in the same town that I grew up in. Granted, obviously, I've traveled loads and I go to different places often and things like that. But this is my base. And it's funny because I don't hang around here. Like, I literally go to the gym and I come home and then I'm traveling around or whatever to see friends or whatever, work. And when I catch a glimpse of what's around me, I realize how that scarcity mentality has been so ingrained into, these areas. Because if you think about, I mean, in England, for example, if I think about London, you could go to North London or West London and it's really affluent. You go to
Mhm.
East London and not so much so. And it's like the demographic of people that are succeeding, in East London, it's quite artsy and things like that. But I think that this is a silent thing, isn't it? You know what we're talking about, this scarcity mindset versus abundant mindset is something that is invisible, and we don't understand it until we come out of it. So for me, it was only when I started to go to university that I saw that all of the girls that I was with came from wealthy families. So I was the only one that had to struggle. I was working like 4 different jobs to like keep
Same,
myself financially
same.
afloat,
Yep.
right? And then I didn't even realize that that wasn't normal until I was around these people, and I was like, really? More hardship? Come on. Like, but then that obviously gives you that fuel to your fire, right? To get out of it and find another way. But again, I guess even that is the scarcity mindset, to think, I've got to keep pushing to get through this. And I think, you said something key there about, how do I tap into that abundance? And I think it's reminding yourself, isn't it, of what abundance looks like to you? Because I think to
Mhm.
each of us, abundance is different, and I know that I've got some friends that are living their abundant life right now with their partner and their children in their home that they bought, and that for them is abundance. They've created that home, they might have done all the renovations they wanted to, and they are now living in their abundance and they're so fulfilled. And then I've got
Mhm.
some friends that have spent their whole life building a business and it's now turning over the money that they've dreamt of, and they're living abundantly. And then I've got people traveling the world that are still abundant, they feel like traveling is their abundance. So I feel like, that's the saying, isn't it? Comparison's the thief of joy. And I think that
For sure.
really and truly it's our own North Star that we have to focus on. And for anyone that doesn't know, that North Star is what it does abundance look like for you, and get really clear on that, because that's the way that you navigate yourself to that, right? Because I think without that point of reference for yourself, you'll spend your whole life going around in circles trying to find it,
Mhm.
realizing that you might have had it all along.
Absolutely. I love that. Getting very clear on your North Star or your values and what you value, and know what you stand for.
Mm,
Because if you don't know what you stand for, you fall for anything, right? And
absolutely.
and that is something that I'm noticing working with thousands of people these past few years across all industries, is that many of them don't even haven't slowed down enough. They've been in the rat race, and they're
Mm,
just on the hamster wheel, that hedonic treadmill, and they're literally not slowing down. Like we were just talking about slowing down to speed up, like getting reflective, figuring out what you've been doing that's working well, what's not working well, and what you want to start, stop, and continue, and just taking time, being intentional about taking time to reflect and taking time to get out of your habitat, to change your habits. Just like you said, you travel a lot, so you get out of your little ruts, because when you travel, you can't have the same routine. You got to, and you have to look different ways. If the people are, we almost got run over in Thailand this year because we looked the wrong way when we went across the street. and then a motorcycle's coming this way, and we're like, oh yeah, traffic's on this side of the road, and we were looking, you're used to looking this way, and so all of a sudden your normal habits you recognize aren't working for you in this environment. So you eat different foods, you get a different mindset when you're traveling. That oh man, I love the travel mindset, because you're open and you're willing, and you want to learn more, and you want to taste it, and you want to smell it, and you want to feel it. And I can't I can't say enough how much travel or retreats and things like that can actually be something that will help get people out of their rut. And when they're feeling stuck, sometimes you need to change your habitat, or your environment, to change your habits.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with that. And you said something so valuable there about intention. Like that's the key word, isn't it? What is your intention? And that's something I ask my clients. It's something I ask people if they attend like a free webinar that I do. What's your intention for this right now? Because I want you to get clear on what it is you want to gain from this hour, because it might be that you just want to connect with other women. It might be
Mm.
that you don't know what your intention is. You won't get something out of it, right? So it's like dig deeper for that. And
Yeah.
the travel piece is so valuable. And I think especially for people that are, I'll say that people that have grown up in the same like area or around the same type of people over and over again in their lives, that you'll only get that circle of those people's opinions. So it is
Hmm.
so important to go outside of it. Like you said, I think, I'm from a different culture, so I've had that fed into my life already, but my family's quite diverse. I've got lots of different cultures, even within my family. So going to different gatherings, there'll be different types of food, and we always like everyone brings a different dish sometimes. So that's always a nice way of experiencing different things. But if you don't have access to that, it is just expanding yourself just to that different perspective. Because using Thailand as an example, I think my first time I went to Thailand, seeing how happy these kids were playing in the street with a cardboard box, you're like,
Yes.
you think about even in the US, there's kids on their tablets and they're not happy, they're not fulfilled. There's all these amusements and all the things, and they just don't care. And you've got these
Mhm.
little kids in Thailand with no shoes on, playing with a box, living their best life.
Yeah.
It really is, again, I think, conditioning, right? It's like people in Thailand have such a slow pace of life. They're not in a rush to go anywhere. And that's such a beautiful thing. And I think if we all took a leaf out of that book to just slow down, as you were saying, that really is the success. I think we're so caught up in trying to beat other people that we lose out on life. All that time you're spending, one, your cortisol levels are probably through the roof, and you probably can't even switch off even if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But two, that when you get to the top of the mountain peak and you look back and realize it's just you there, you've got no one to share it with, then you'll wonder, was it worth it? Like I would much rather slow down, enjoy the process, and take everyone that I love with me, everyone that's obviously growing with me, than to go it alone, because I felt so isolated my whole life because I'd built such a wall around me to not let
Mm.
anyone in, that I don't want to do that again, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's not being a people pleaser. That's actually being an empath, but from a space of having a healthy boundary, having a focus and intention and North Star, and just trusting the universe or God or whatever you believe in is going to aid me in getting there. I don't have
Mhm.
to rush or force anything anymore. And don't get me wrong, there's times where you do need to put both feet on the ground and run. And there's times where you can stroll, but you'll know when that is. And I think especially seasonally, as we were saying before we got on the call about how, um, we're in autumn now, so the leaves are falling, like you can use that. And I always say to people, if you're going through a hard time, you're probably in a winter, right? So now we're in autumn, I feel like I'm just picking up to get into spring again for my own personal self. So it's just tuning in, right? And figuring out what works for you and who you are. And like you said, I think working with the right coach or mentor really just amplifies that. I feel like I wouldn't be where I am today without the support I've had from mentors in my life, be it ones that I've found through like the charitable work that I've done in the past, but also the mentors that I've invested in as well because of this, like I mean, I am what I am now today because of me, and I own every part of that. But I know there's a lot of my journey that I needed someone's hand to hold, and having
Mhm.
that has transformed every part of you know, why I am here now to tell the tale, really.
Absolutely. And now you're giving back to the world like this, your podcast, you can be in in their cars and on their walks, and you could be the person that is their inspiration and their mentor that you don't even know. And I talk
Mm,
about this a lot. Like Brene Brown is one of the people that I have been listening to and studying and researching for,
same.
ever for years. And so like I always talk about how she's one of my best friends and mentors. Like she doesn't know me. But I know her and I know her research and I know that she's made a difference in my life, and I wouldn't be where I am today if she hadn't done that work and been brave enough and courageous enough to share it. And so we have our little corners of the world and our own ripples of impact, and we are influencing somebody who likes listening to us. That is what we can do for them. And then once they get filled up, it's going to flow out to their family, to their circle of influence. Like we never know how big our ripples of impact can be.
Absolutely that. And that's something I always share about how, you know, like that one drop in the ocean continues this ripple effect. And I was literally speaking to one of my clients about this, and like her whole life has changed. Like her relationships evolved, and like even her partner now is opening up about his feelings, and they're both ex-military and they're now talking about their feelings. So she was like, oh, we would never have had these conversations if we hadn't done this work, right? And I've only worked with her, by the way. This is just a byproduct of, you know, you inspiring the people around you. So I completely resonate with that. It's such a powerful thing. And again, this is why for me now working with girls as well is so important, because they're going to change their generational lineage just through knowing this stuff. And I had to say it to them because it was the first session and they were just like, why am I here? This is weird. Why are you wearing an orange suit? You know, all of these things. I was like, look, orange is my favorite color, guys. All right, just saying. But more so, I was like, you don't realize how much this is going to change your life from now. Like, you are in my energy. We're about to rocket launch you 1,000 miles ahead of wherever you were going to go before. You've just rerouted. And I'm really excited to see where your life ends up as a result of knowing this stuff. And yeah, for me, that's like my ripples are now, you know, having their own like little mini ripples that are coming off. And it's so wonderful to see that. And I think to go back to the point you said earlier about your younger self, I think that that for me was like a little moment today where I was like, oh my gosh, like I am being everything that I needed. And I think that's such a fulfilling space, isn't it? For me, that's the reward, that's the success. Everything else is just a byproduct of it. But really and truly, that part, that's it, isn't it?
I just got the goosebumps, which is a sign of awe. And so I really resonated with that, where you say, be the person that you need, your younger self needed. Like be that to you and also be that to other people. Like
Mm.
um, all of our parents were doing the best they could and what they knew how.
Yeah,
If they knew better, they'd do better.
absolutely.
And honestly, think about this. This makes the behavior makes sense from the actor's perspective.
So much.
What they're doing makes sense to them
Yeah.
because that's how they've been raised, and it's the environment that they grew up in. It's the language they learn. And so we have to recognize that while things may have happened to us, they it's what you think about what happened to you. That's where the game changer is. And one of Peter
Mm.
Crone's quotes that actually turned me around was, what happened happened, and it couldn't have happened any other way because it didn't.
Yeah. Word.
And
Word. Mic
my,
drop.
yeah, that's a Peter Cronism. And literally, some people can hear that and be like, well, I don't like that, because they're not ready. But I was
Absolutely.
ready, and I absorbed that, and I absorbed it. And I'm like, yeah, what happened happened, and it couldn't have happened any other way because it didn't. And maybe my soul's journey needed that to happen. And maybe I actually picked that mother. And maybe my soul's
I
journey
agree.
has so much more, and I had to go through that to be who I am today. And if I had had an easy street, I'd probably be a self-righteous, um entitled bitch, you know?
Yeah. No, but I absolutely agree with you because I say the same thing. Like, I could
Yeah.
never teach this work without having gone through this journey. And when
Yeah.
I was going through it, I promise you now, I knew there was a reason for it. I knew when I was younger and things were hard and it felt heavy and I didn't understand why it was so difficult. I had this little voice telling me it will make sense. And I feel like this is the point now in my life where I'm like, every part of this makes sense because again, I couldn't hold this space. I couldn't create safety for people if I didn't know what it felt like to feel unsafe my whole life. So it's
Mm.
so powerful, isn't it? That and even more so, like to just reiterate that quote, it's like, you know, if nothing changes, nothing changes. But if you know better, you should be doing better.
Yeah.
And that literally just is it, right? It's like, are you going to know that the reason you're the way you are is because of what you experienced? Are you going to continue to keep doing that over and over again? Or are you going to say, no, this ends with me now? Because I believe, and from the conversations I've been having with other real spiritual practitioners, is that we are like a new wave of, you know, soul-led people that are here to break cycles. And I think that if you're listening to this, resonating with this is your journey. This is why you've had to do this, and to help other people awaken as a byproduct of whatever it was that you experienced. And, you know, whatever you want to call it, a light worker, a star seed, whatever that energy resonance is, there's a reason why it was so hard. And it's like, are you now going to take your power and use it for good? Or are you going to leave it dormant and wait for the next person to take it? Because that's the thing with generational trauma, right? It continues to get louder and louder and louder, and someone until someone wants to listen and then deal with it, right?
Yeah, life is calling. That you have an appointment with life. And the question is, are you going to pick up the phone?
Mm,
Are you going to answer? Like when you have that little voice, that still small voice that says, maybe you should leave your hometown. Maybe you should go see what is there. Maybe you should go help that person. These things could be a different way. I want to create a different life. You know you have it, but there's fear holding you back. And there's three big obstacles. Number one, yourself. What would you have to change in your identity?
yeah, yeah,
That is scary. That's real scary. How much would you have to change? Also, what about that identity of the family or your friend group? Like, what do they expect you to be? What script do they have for you? And how have they defined what you need to be like? And then you have the societal, bigger community, and that has a script as well. And so as you're looking at those, you need to recognize that all three of those factors make a big, they feel heavy. And but when you know they're there and they're barriers or obstacles that you can overcome just with your thoughts and having other people to help you see that that new identity isn't as scary as you think it is. Like you can be the kind of person, you could change your life. It might be scary for sure, but so is staying stuck and miserable and um, feeling like you're helpless. And having regret at the end of your life of things you didn't do that you knew you wanted, that you wished you'd done earlier. We do know,
absolutely.
yeah, people regret from the World Regret Survey and Daniel Pink's work. We do know that regret, people at the end of their lives regret the things they didn't do more than they regret the chances they took, the mistakes they made, the businesses that failed. They don't regret the failures as much as they regret the non-actions of asking that person to marry them, getting off the bus, moving from their hometown, doing the thing, starting that business, writing that book, starting the podcast, you name it. The world, like people regret the things or asking for that apology or
Mm,
apologizing, making amends before that person that you've been estranged from dies. Once that
yeah,
happens, it's, even though you think it won't be a big deal because you don't have a good relationship, I can guarantee you're going to have a different feeling when it actually happens, because you don't know how it feels until it happens. Just like you don't know what it feels like to be a parent until you've had a child, or you don't know what it's like to
mm.
be in a relationship till you've been in one. Like those experiences, we don't know what it will actually be like until we've actually experienced it.
Yeah, absolutely that. And you know, for me, because obviously I lost so many relatives at such a young age, that was always my driving force, is that I don't want to live knowing that I didn't try. I want to go 100% doing whatever it is I feel like I need to do, just to say that I tried. If I failed, I failed, you know. And I think that I was thinking this today, that I haven't failed at all. I haven't failed once in my life, because I've learned every single time something didn't go the way that I thought it would. I've learned a really valuable lesson. So I haven't failed at all. And actually, I think failure needs to come out of our vocabulary as humans, because I think it's a lesson, right?
Yeah.
You either move forward to the next step, or you repeat the other one again until you learn the process. But yeah, I really do. That's something I repeat over and over again, that life is so short and unpredictable, that isn't it better to just go for it? Like, I've had relatives and family and friends die really young, not even having their life ahead of them. And I'm like, if it all ended tomorrow, at least I'd be able to look back and say, well done, girl, you did it. You know, you did whatever it was, even if it's a big dream or a small dream, just that one step, that one foot in front of the other to the next thing. That's really what it's all about. And like you said, we build up fear as this big monster that's luring over our back. But what if
Mm.
that's just the shadow of a tiny little thing, you know?
Mm.
And if we looked at our shadow and actually turned round and said, hey, what you're afraid of? It would just say, you know, like, I'm just a bit scared that it might not work out. And you're like, thank you for telling me that. Or they might even say to you, are you sure you want to do that yet? Maybe we could try that instead. You know, like, it's not eradicating fear. For me, I call it befriending your shadow. So then you can actually have that conversation with yourself and say, what am I afraid of right now? What is it that feels scary? And I promise you, whoever's listening, that, you know, even something as little as turning vegetarian, my family love meat. Okay, everyone loves meat in my family. My family are from Guyana, they eat a lot of meat, right? So if I visit my Caribbean family, I was concerned that there would be nothing for me to eat. I don't know where I got that from. I get, maybe it's the, like, the poor mentality in my mind, that I thought that was the only food we had. Now when I turn up to things, they'll make something for me, or worst case scenario, I'll bring something myself, you know. And that's a very basic example of, like, I was refusing to go vegetarian for such a long time because I was worried that there'd be no food for me to eat. Like, you know, your values need to outweigh the reason why you're scared, right? And I think that, you know, that's such a micro example, but that might be what it is, right? For a listener, it's like, I actually really don't want to eat animals anymore, but I don't know how to say that to people. Just say it, you know. I think that I've lost a lot of people to death, but I've also lost a lot of people in my life to stop playing to the role that they wanted me to play and to start being myself. But I promise you, everyone that's gone was supposed to. And I
Mhm.
know that feels scary, but you meet new people along the way, and the ones that you do meet will meet you where you're at, instead of remembering the older version of you. And I think that's the key part, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. It really is. I love that you said, you know, you learn from everything. I don't know who said this quote, but I really love it. I either win or what do we usually say?
Learn.
Yeah.
Look, oh, you're,
Yours
yeah,
should
yeah,
say lose. You either
yeah,
win or
yeah,
you, but what about I either win or I learn? And
yeah.
you know, so either way, you're winning. You're learning or you're winning.
Mm,
If you see it like that, and if in that's what I think perfectionism is a really awful thing to struggle with, because you think that you have to have everything perfect and you can't start until it's perfect, and that is a trap in itself. Just you got to start and then figure it out a lot as you go. And motivation comes after you've started, and after you start to actually have a little bit of stuff going. It's not going to just, you're not just going to wake up one day and go, I feel like writing a book today. You just got to start and then have the motivation start to come.
yeah, I completely agree with you. And that's such a key point there, because I think a lot of my clients come to me because they're unmotivated, and we just jiggle a few things around, you know. I just move a little few things around. I'm not giving them a whole list of what they need to do, just, you know, one or two things for the next week or so. And they're like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't think about it like that. And it's just, you know, we make things a big deal, don't we? Again, the story that we're telling ourselves, to quote Brene Brown. And
Mm.
it's just funny, isn't it? When someone gives you a different perspective, you're like, oh, yeah, that was actually a really big deal that didn't need to be, which I think is just, yeah, just a wonderful thing of the mind. And that's, again, I guess, going back to that scarcity or abundant mindset, right? Is when you're programmed to always see it a certain way, it does take time and dedication to change the way your narrative looks. But
Mm.
the more you start to feed that abundant mindset, the more you'll see it. And I think, what something that I work through myself all the time is from coming from that mindset and living that way for like 28 years of my life, that if I'm in a dark place for even a split second, my mind will want to run back to that scarcity mindset because that's all it knows. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, hold on a minute. Let's just sit down. We don't have to go anywhere. Let's just hold the space for a moment. And then after I shake it off and I'm like, yeah, you're right. Let's move forward. Because, those 28 years have outweighed the like 5 years that I've been outside of it. So it's being kind to yourself in this journey, isn't it? And just like we said, surrendering to the journey really of it all.
I had one of those moments a while back. I was laying on our patio and it was a beautiful sunny day, and I had a blanket and I was in and I was just and there was the birds were chirping and all of this, and I was literally like, all of a sudden the thoughts came in. What if you lose it all? Just the thoughts. And I came into my husband, I'm like, I just had the worst thoughts. And I said, I literally said, F you thoughts, F you. But I said the real word. I was like,
Yeah.
and I'm literally like, because I'm noticing that I'm having joy and I'm here in this moment, but the thoughts come in and then it's like, what if, what if, what if? And then so I'm just like, F you, get out of here. Like, I don't need that right now. Like, if that happens, I'll deal with it then. But right now, I'm snuggled up here in this blanket and I'm going to just love on, be happy and be at peace. But if we can recognize that everybody has those, that you're not alone, that those thoughts
Mm.
come in, and especially if you grew up in that scarcity and fearful environment, they come around, they come running in, and sometimes they're sneaky.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely. No, I love that. And I actually laugh at myself. So, especially around my hormones, like if I'm coming into my cycle, I laugh at myself getting angry. I did it today. Like, if I leave the gym in the school run traffic, I start to get annoyed at the drivers, and I'm like, I have to laugh at myself because I'm like, why are you getting angry for? It's just they've just pulled out, like it's fine. But that was a real trigger for me back when I was always rushing to get somewhere. So then
Yeah.
that's an old thing, but now I crease up at myself. I'm like, oh, there you go. She's come out again. She's come out of a shell for a moment. She can go back in again now. But yeah, I've absolutely loved hearing your process and how you do things. I think that it's been such a refreshing conversation. So thank you for like being here and being so honest with all of these things. And
Thank
I guess if people want to find you to listen to your podcast, I will put all the links below, but how can people work with you if they want to?
So they can just go to our website, which is Black River Black River PM, as in performance management.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Angie Leon, Lion. And so that would be the best ways to connect with me on LinkedIn and to check us out on our website. And I'm grateful to be here, and I love sharing our parallel lives in different areas of the world, and what we've learned along the way. As soon as I met you, I was like, oh wow, I got a soul sister in the UK.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. Well, to actually round that bit off, I have my little soul to soul segment that I like to end with. So, whatever you feel like, whether it's based on a conversation, something you'd like to tell your younger self, or just something that you feel your soul needs to share right now, I'd love you to just have that as your closing statement.
I think where my soul is right now is that there's a lot of dark in the world, and we were talking about this before we started. There's a lot of dark in the world, but you can be the keeper of the light. And that still means fighting for the things that you believe in, regardless of what the masses are doing and what they're saying, and those societal scripts. You have to really slow down and tune into your soul and your internal self, and make sure that you're not just following the crowd because of the noise. Slow down, get with your soul, know what your North Star is. Stop struggling as much. When you stop struggling, you float.
Mm,
Learn to surrender and trust that the universe, or that you are held, and that you're not as, you don't need to be as fearful as you feel like you need to be. That there is a bigger, larger plan. And if you if you can tune into that and know what's going on inside of you, you already have all of that intelligence you need. But you do need to surround yourself with people who will help make that journey, will help you take that next step, who will be the person who protect your flame, and get away from the candle blower outers.
Yeah, that's it. You don't want anyone that's gonna steal your light or sparkle, and you want to, yeah, give yourself that permission to shine, really, eh?
Mhm.
But thank you so much, Angie, for joining me. It's been a really lovely conversation.
Thank you. And then I would just go say, go shine your ass off.
Yeah, absolutely that.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
If this episode resonated with you, please do like, follow, and share with someone that you know would benefit. If you're looking to dive in deeper to becoming your most unapologetic, most authentic, shining self, please do head to my website and join my newsletter, where you will find out about all of my upcoming events and speaking opportunities and all of the things that I have going on. And also, if you would like to work with me, please do drop me a DM on any of my socials or through my website. Love and light.